Welcome back to Malaka Motorsports. I'm Stav, and today we're going to be doing part 2 of this wiring extravaganza. Now, I know it kind of looks like we tore up this harness and wires are everywhere, but we did tear up this harness and wires are everywhere. So today, what my goals are to achieve is to get the coils fully wired in. Something that I didn't record, but we now, George welded in these bungs here. So we have the map sensor, the IAT sensor, which just a typical GM IAT sensor, you know, pretty cheap and works well. We have the flex fuel sensor here. We have the coolant pressure sensor, and behind here is the oil pressure sensor. All of these are 150 psi gauges. You know, typical TI sensors work really well. George used them on the VR6. You can see how well it's working right now. And then we have our fuel pressure sensor, which is wired in. In order to be able to wire all the connectors correctly and, you know, run the wires nicely, I had George put the turbo and downpipe all in so we know where everything goes. We have the EGT sensor and the NTK sensor from Syvecs. They recommended we upgrade this from the 4.2. It's a faster reading response apparently, so you know they're the experts, so we listen to them. We're also going to integrate the turbo speed sensor, which goes into the compressor housing, bottom lower right there. We haven't installed it yet, but it'll be there. So we have a lot of wiring to do. I figured out in the last week, basically, I ended up figuring out all the pins for the harness, where everything goes, where it ohms out, where they share power. Basically, a lot of nerd stuff that, you know, when we're trying to diagnose in the future, I have this information written down, so it'll really help us and save some time. Luckily, a lot of things, because, again, this motor goes from one transverse motor to another. A lot of the connectors are the right lengths. We just have to basically cut them and repin them for the VR6. Now, I never thought I'd say this. I'm going to be very honest. I'm pretty excited working on a 24 valve. This is the first time I'll ever say this, and probably my last. So, yeah, let's get to work. And I'd like to get the coils wired in and then modified into the harness. Now, please excuse all the wiring mess. Obviously, this is all going to get cleaned up when we harness wrap and everything like that. But for right now, we're leaving everything exposed so that we could get a base file from Ryan at Syvecs. Luckily, he's working with us to get a base file. They basically know all the information they need to know for the R32. But since we're trying to integrate the RS3 and the R32, they're basically going to make us a custom base file so that we retain all the factory options. So some progress has been made. As you guys see in the time lapse, been working pretty diligently over here. We got the coil pack all wired in, ground and power. We have the ignition, all 6 of them now. They're wired into the ECU. We ended up putting the ground for the coil pack here on the head. We also got done the intake and exhaust cam sensors along with the 2 VVTi solenoids. Now we also we reused the coolant temp sensor from the RS3, so that'll be easy. We didn't change anything about it, just the location. We also added, since George is going to be using a 4-port boost controller, which we had on the shelf here, put it to a Deutsch connector. You know, pretty standard, nice high quality connector. Fuel pressure sensor is wired in. That was a little bit of a pain to run the wiring and, you know, run it neatly inside the wind tray runner. And then the EGT and NTK sensor is done. Overall, we made a lot of progress so far. I still got a lot more work to do because we're going to have to repin the ECU. But let's continue on. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update as I've been working on this. I know it looks like it's not a lot getting done, but been working on it for now about 8 or 9 hours. Let's continue on. You guys, a little thing that I'm doing here, probably, you know, you guys are going to get lost here in the wiring. But let me take that paper clip out. After pinning all the, you know, all the harness and we have everything run to the ECU, what we have to do for the, you know, for the patch harness is essentially we made an Excel file here, and you can see some of it. Basically, when we pinned out the ECU, we ended up, like over here, I have the original RS3 harness, what everything goes to, versus the VR6 standard harness that they use, like the R32 harness. And then Ryan at Syvecs was kind enough to make me a list of exactly where he wants all the pinouts to be, because again, we are adding a cylinder, injector, and a lot of other sensors, but they're not staying in the same inputs and outputs like the standard RS3 standalone is. So I'm keeping track of everything so that if we ever have to go later back and diagnose something, let's say, you know, we have a cylinder not firing, we have a sensor not working, I know it in the wiring exactly where everything is and what shares what powers, you know, for example. So we ended up terminating the complete outputs on the Syvecs ECU. As you guys see, there's, you know, one for power, one for outputs, one for inputs on the ECU. Ended up getting that all done today. I'm not going to go crazy and spend all day like I did yesterday on it. I plan on trying to enjoy the rest of my weekend. But we got a lot of work done. I know it doesn't look like, you know, anything's physically changed. There's nothing new added. But, you know, and then I ohmed out every coil pack, every part of the injection, and everything on terminal A for the outputs. All the outputs are going to the correct terminals now. So I'm pretty excited about that. Because again, we don't have to change anything. We don't have to, we know that everything is working and in the right sensor. For example, when we go to fire up the motor, when we get a base file, I know that cylinder 1 will fire cylinder 1. Sounds kind of minute, but when you have issues and misfires, it could probably be a big pain. So really excited. We're definitely making a lot of progress. I hope to, you know, have this maybe firing by Wednesday, Thursday of this week. We'll see. Hopefully everything is pinned correctly and everything works like it's supposed to. Obviously, we'll clean up the spaghetti as we go, but we're going to end up having a lot of things that we're no longer using, because we're no longer using the original fuel pressure sensor. We're not using the intake manifold flap. Just a lot of stuff that we're no longer using from the RS3 harness. So, you know, I can go back and remove that and make the, you know, the harness nice and pretty. So, but I just want to leave it there for now until we start it, because you never know. Maybe we get the idea to add something and we already have the wiring ran. We could just cut it and add the new pins for the new connectors. So, yeah, guys, definitely making progress. I wanted to show you guys the Excel file that we're making and everything that we have for the ECU. As you guys can see, we've definitely been working hard. Thank you guys for watching. This is part 2. Next video, part 3. I hope to have the base file have the base file, and we'll start working with the sensors, making sure that everything's reading, calibrated correctly, and then we can go to fire. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Stav. George is still not in this damn video. I don't know where he's been for the last 2 days, but thanks for watching.